Good evening, I'm Micah Ullman.
And I'm Cher Calvin. Thank you for joining us on this special coverage of the midterm election. We've got team coverage, reporters spread out throughout Southern California, keeping an eye on some of the most competitive races here at home and all across the country.
We've also got a team of experts here in studio for analysis on key races that could have a big impact on the balance of power in Washington. John Goya, Vice President of Make California Great Again. Caroline Heldman, a political analyst and professor at Occidental College, and political consultant Matt Klink. But first, polling stations have already closed in several states across the country.
Let's go to Glenn Walker, who is live in studio with a deeper look at those key races and what it means for the Democrats hoping to take back control of Congress. Glenn?
Yeah, Cher, Micah, the races are starting to take shape around the country. Let's take a look at some results in the U.S. Senate first. In Missouri, Democrat incumbent Claire McCaskill is up right now in her re-election bid. Right now, she's leading GOP challenger Josh Hawley. Remember, President Trump was in Missouri last night on his behalf, a huge crowd, but so far McCaskill is doing well. She's bidding for a third term, and she has sided with President Trump on many issues, including pharmaceutical regulation.
All right, Chip, thank you. In a matter of hours, California will have a new governor-elect.
Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom appears to have the edge over his challenger, Republican businessman John Cox.
We have team coverage of the California gubernatorial race. First to Mary Beth McDade live at Newsom's watch party in downtown Los Angeles. Hi, Mary Beth.
Hi there, Mike and Cher. Yeah, we're here at the Exchange in LA in downtown Los Angeles. Now, this building, it used to be the LA Stock Exchange building, but tonight, Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom and 1,000 of his supporters are hoping to turn this into one heck of a victory party. Lieutenant Governor Newsom and his wife, they're expected to come down here for the watch party and watch those results roll in. Earlier today, up there outside of San Francisco in Larkspur, Lieutenant Governor Newsom, he cast his ballot. He was escorted by his wife and his 4 children. And then after voting, he spoke to reporters.
Being a candidate for governor, winning the governor's race, which I hope we're successful tonight, wouldn't mean as much if we don't take back the House. Look, I don't think it's a gross exaggeration to say Trump's declared war on California. We're going to need all the foot soldiers we can get.
In the final stretch of the governor's race, Newsom crisscrossed California, pledging to fix the housing and homeless crisis, health care for all, and also to improve early childhood education programs. Now, while he says don't expect a spending spree, it's unclear just how he's going to pay for all these big ideas. Now, Newsom, he has been the lieutenant governor since 2011 and also served as mayor of San Francisco from 2004 to 2011. Now, looking at all the polls here at this point, it does appear that Newsom has a very large lead over his GOP competition, businessman John Cox. We'll be here throughout the evening watching the results come in. For now, reporting live here in downtown Los Angeles, Mary Beth McDade. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Mary Beth, thank you. We are also live tonight at Republican headquarters in San Diego, where supporters of candidate John Cox are gathering.
KTLA Steve Kuj live at the U.S. Grant Hotel with the very latest there. Steve.
You know, Cher and Micah, you guys want to know who's covered a lot of ground today? We're talking about John Cox. This man has covered a ton of ground. He has been absolutely all over the place. He started off his day here in San Diego. He made a number of different campaign stops at various cities along the way, made his way all the way up to Irvine and Orange County, and then came back down here to San Diego. You might ask yourself, why? Why is he making such a hard push the last second? Well, that's because, as you just heard from Mary Beth, the odds have never really been in Cox's favor. You talk about what this guy has to do. He needs to rally millions of votes. Cox, we spoke to him earlier today while he was rallying for Mimi Walters, bringing some pizza to everybody there who's making phone calls, reminding folks to get out the vote. Cox tells me he's energetic, he's enthusiastic, and they're cautiously optimistic about his chances tonight. Even though they might not be seen in the numbers, they're cautiously optimistic. All along, Cox has had the support of President Donald Trump. The president's endorsement solidified Cox's backing from California Republicans. But in the very progressive and liberal state that is California, That kind of support from President Trump, it does hurt him with various groups of voters in our state. Every election poll conducted among likely voters in California has had Republican John Cox trailing Democratic challenger Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. But what are the selling points Cox is using to win over the millions of votes he needs here in California? Well, Cox says he's all about lowering California taxes. He wants to create lower gas prices. He wants to eliminate spending in the state that he believes is unnecessary. Fiscal responsibility is a promise of the Cox campaign. His main message is that a vote for him is a vote for more money left over in your wallet and bank account at the end of every day. Cox has also vowed to do away with California's sanctuary state law protecting undocumented immigrants. When we talked to Cox just a couple of hours ago, he reinforced who he's fighting for and who he's fighting against. Have a listen.
Interest groups are making life in this state virtually unaffordable and unlivable for the hardworking people of this state. This is about getting people to actually be able to save some money, to be actually afford a house, to afford to fill up their tank and not have to worry about putting food on the table that night. There's going to be a new day in California. It starts tonight when I'm elected the next governor of the state, and tomorrow I start to talk about reforming Sacramento, really getting a legislature that works for us and not these interest groups, and get the people back in charge for a change.
But before we get to tomorrow, we got to get through tonight, and it is here in downtown San Diego at the U.S. Grand Hotel, here in the presidential ballroom, where gubernatorial candidate John Cox is going to be making his appearance. He's going to be with his family, his friends, hundreds of supporters packing this area for what is arguably the most important moment of John Cox's life. And we're going to be bringing it here to bring it to you live.
Are 11 propositions on the ballot.
Lou Parker is with a panel of experts. She has more on the most hotly contested propositions. Hi, Lou.
Hi, Sharon. Micah, of course, we do have a lot to talk about tonight. As you mentioned, 11 propositions on the ballot. I am joined by legal expert Allison Treasel, also Associate Professor Sarah Hill of Cal State Fullerton. Some hot topics to talk about.
There certainly are.
Yes, and we just saw Chris Wolf talk about the gas tax. It's Proposition 6. You guys have different opinions on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the propositions that Sarah and I just disagree with. I believe that Californians spend so much time in their cars. When you ask what their biggest complaints are, it's how much gas costs.
Yes.
And anytime they see a proposition that says repeal a gas tax, they're going to jump all over it, because most of the time they're asked to give more money. So the fact that they can take a little bit back, they're going to want to vote for it.
All right, Sarah.
Well, because they spend so much time in their cars, I think they want better roads. And this is really interesting because you actually have the Chamber of Commerce supporting the no side on this. They actually want to keep it. And I think they're realizing that for business, it's actually a good thing if we fix the roads, if we do something about it. And I think that's how Californians are going to feel about this one, that it's worth a bit of money to be able to fix our crumbling infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that's the argument out there from both sides.
Right.
Is you guys are on it. Let's talk about
in the suburbs.
Sarah Sanders said tonight she didn't anticipate the president would call Nancy Pelosi, a longstanding tradition among presidents in office. The opposing party's leader wins the House. They call and congratulate. He ultimately did call Pelosi tonight, from what we've heard. The question going forward, is there an olive branch, and is Trump have to move and make a deal with Congress as a deal maker going into 2020 and re-election?
I think Trump is a great deal maker, and I think maybe having the Democrats win this is going to be good for him. The Republicans weren't doing anything in the House. The Senate was doing it, and it shows. The people of America voted for more Republicans into the Senate. But the House was not really working.
Do we see a deal-making president for 2 years?
It doesn't matter what Donald Trump tries to do the next 2 years. He is going to be the subject of investigations that should have happened the previous 2 years. Maxine Waters is going to be the head of the Financial Services Committee. Immediately, his tax returns will be demanded so the American public can see what he's been hiding since prior to the election. You also have Adam Schiff now in charge of intelligence. So we're actually going to have documents turned over to Mueller. And if Mueller finds something, the House will certainly impeach.
Matt, last word, what do we see over the next 2 years in Washington?
That olive branch that Donald Trump extended, Nancy Pelosi shook her hand, and she's holding a saw behind her back. So
this is why nothing changes, because the only thing you people know how to do on the left is attack.
Well, no, when you have a president who has an impressive...
Had we done this to Obama, who lied
no president looks like
to
Donald
American
Trump.
people?
You can't compare Donald Trump to any previous president in American
I can tell
history.
we've settled a lot tonight.
You settled a lot, and you think this is fireworks. The commercial break is just as bad or good, depending on how you want to look at it. The three of you, good of you to take the time and be with us tonight.
Thank you.
More to come on the other side. The headline here in the state of California tonight, the race for governor, and Gavin Newsom has won handily over his Republican challenger, John Cox. We have live team coverage. Steve Couge is with the John Cox campaign in San Diego.
But we begin with Mary Beth McDade live in downtown Los Angeles at the headquarters for Gavin Newsom. MB?
Yeah, and Mike and Chair, based on recent poll numbers, I don't think anyone was too surprised by tonight's outcome. Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom is now the governor-elect of California. He took this stage behind me here just a short time ago. He thanked his supporters, and he also outlined his vision for the future.
I've listened and I've learned from Californians of every walk of life, because I know that starting tomorrow, the hard work truly begins. But tonight, I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude. And I'm humbled. I'm humbled to accept this awesome responsibility, because I know what we can accomplish working together, transforming the politically impossible into the practically inevitable. It's about advancing all Californians on their journey by making this a place of equality, making California a place of opportunity, safety, and affordability for everyone. Now it's our turn to spend our waking days protecting that dream for every Californian. Thank you, California. Thank you all very much for being here tonight.
Well, after the victory speech, some of his children and his wife, they joined him up on stage. They waved down to the crowd, and then Gavin Newsom actually went down into the audience. He shook a few hands, thanked some people before heading out. No doubt he needs some get some rest tonight before starting that hard work tomorrow. For now, reporting live here in downtown Los Angeles at the Gavin Newsom victory party, Mary Beth McDade will send it back to you guys in the studio.
Mary Beth, thank you. And just moments ago, Republican John Cox delivered his concession speech before a crowd of his supporters in San Diego.
And that's where we find Steve Couge. Steve.
Looking at this race, guys, the cards were always stacked against John Cox. Here we have a Republican trying to run against the tide here in blue California and turn things red, and it just was not going to happen. Even a lot of political analysts from their beginning wrote off John Cox and his campaign. Cox needed to gather every single California conservative and independent that he could possibly muster up, and in the end, it just wasn't enough. Still, about an hour ago, Cox, he gave his concession speech. He was very humble, very kind throughout, and it's a friendly type of demeanor that Cox carried through all the way through to his campaign during this time. Republican gubernatorial candidate and businessman John Cox, his speech, he made his concession speech about an hour and a half ago. Cox had a whirlwind of a schedule today. He was all over Southern California, making campaign stops up to the very end, all trying to rally supporters in his efforts to get out the vote. Cox sold voters on his pledge to make California a cheaper, more affordable, and a safer place to be. All along, he had the support of President Donald Trump, and the president's endorsement, that helped him get the backing of Republicans here in California. But in this progressive, very liberal state that California is, it likely hurt him with millions of other voters. Every election poll conducted among California voters had Republican John Cox trailing Gavin Newsom, and tonight the polls were right.
And I hope the lieutenant governor has a success, but you know what? He's not going to have that much success unless he deals with the influence peddlers and the people that would bend policy for their own profit. Thank you all for your steadfastness and for your love and your support. And I'm not going anywhere. I love this state.
Well, the numbers are still coming in and being tabulated, but Gavin Newsom had a sizable win margin over Republican John Cox. It almost makes it seem like it's difficult for Republicans to win the governorship in California, but anyone who's a historian knows that's not the case. Our last Republican governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was a man who had the star power and had some ideas that brought him to the governorship. Those were ideas that at the time, even though he was a Republican, they were more moderate conservative ideas, a lot of people might say. Since Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, California has turned more towards the left, become more blue. Perhaps in another political climate, John Cox would have stood more of a chance against Gavin Newsom, but not in California in 2018. Live in San Diego at the Cox Watch Party, I'm Steve Couge, KTLA 5 News.